Darth Vader sat motionless within the suffocating darkness of his meditation chamber, the sterile hum of the Death Star's machinery a distant murmur. Encased in the sphere, he allowed himself a moment of respite. The weight of his armor lifted, his breath no longer constrained by the mechanical rasp of his suit. Here, in the void, he was both less and more than the man who had once been Anakin Skywalker. As he settled into the trance, the Force tugged at his consciousness, pulling him into the depths of memory. A vision began to unfold, vivid and relentless. The chaos of Order 66 erupted around him. Clones, his once loyal soldiers, turned their blasters on the Jedi. Anakin, lightsaber ignited, moved through the carnage with grim determination. The temple burned, its sanctity violated by the very ones sworn to protect it. Younglings huddled in terror, their eyes wide with confusion and betrayal. Anakin's heart pounded, each beat a painful reminder of what he had become. The dark side whispered promises of power and peace, its seductive voice drowning out the cries of the innocent. He was unstoppable, a whirlwind of destruction. But with each life he snuffed out, a piece of his soul crumbled into ashes. Yet he did not falter. The vision sharpened, focusing on a single moment. A young Padawan, barely more than a child, stood before him, defiance in his eyes. Anakin raised his saber, hesitating for a fraction of a heartbeat. The boy's eyes, so full of hope and fear, seared into his soul. "No, please," the Padawan cried, his voice cracking with desperation. Anakin's hand trembled. For an instant, the darkness receded, and he saw himself as he once was, a protector, a hero. The faces of those he loved, Padme, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, flashed before his eyes. But the dark side surged, quelling the flicker of light within him. With a swift, merciless strike, the boy fell, and Anakin Skywalker was lost forever, consumed by the darkness that now defined him. The vision blurred, shifting to another scene. Anakin, now Darth Vader, knelt before the Emperor. "What is thy bidding, my master?" he asked, his voice devoid of the warmth it once held. "You have done well, Lord Vader," Sidious intoned, his voice a cold caress. "But your journey to the dark side is not yet complete." Vader's meditation chamber shuddered, a harsh knock breaking the trance. His eyes snapped open, the vision dissipating like mist. He was no longer Anakin. The name, the man, was a ghost, buried beneath the armor and the darkness. Rage flared within him at the intrusion, a boiling anger that threatened to consume. A death trooper stood at attention, the glossy black of his armor reflecting the dim light of the chamber. "Lord Vader," he said, his voice distorted by the helmet's vocoder, "the Emperor commands your presence." Vader's fury was palpable, the air crackling with his suppressed rage. With a swift motion of his hand, the Force wrapped around the trooper's throat, lifting him off the ground. The trooper's hands clawed at his helmet, a futile attempt to breathe. "I informed you that I was not to be disturbed while in my chambers," Vader said, his voice a menacing growl, each word dripping with dark intent. The trooper's struggles weakened, his legs kicking feebly. Vader held him there for a moment longer, letting the fear and desperation seep into the trooper's soul. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he released the trooper, who crumpled to the ground, gasping for breath. "Inform the Emperor that I am on my way," Vader commanded, his voice a deep, resonant threat. The death trooper bowed, retreating with military precision, his steps unsteady. Vader followed, his mind a storm of conflict. The vision lingered, a reminder of what he had sacrificed for power, for the promise of peace. Each step he took was heavy with the ghosts of his past, his anger simmering at the edges of his control. The dark corridors of the Death Star swallowed him, but the memory of Anakin Skywalker haunted his steps, a phantom pain that refused to be silenced. Anger and sorrow intertwined, fueling his dark power. As he strode toward the Emperor's chamber, the echoes of his past whispered through the Force, a reminder of the man he had been and the monster he had become. Vader moved through the labyrinthine halls of the Death Star, each step a rhythmic echo of purpose and menace. The command center doors loomed ahead, and as they parted, he was greeted by the oppressive presence of Emperor Palpatine, shrouded in his dark robes, his eyes glowing with a malevolent light. "Lord Vader," Sidious hissed, his voice dripping with the promise of power and the chill of death. "Come closer, my apprentice." Vader approached, the weight of his master's gaze a palpable force. He knelt, head bowed, awaiting the Emperor's command. "I have sensed a disturbance in the Force," Sidious began, his tone weaving a web of intrigue and dread. "An ancient Sith artifact has resurfaced, one that holds the key to unimaginable power." The room seemed to darken further, the shadows deepening as Sidious spoke. "It is located on Mygeeto, within the ruins of a forgotten Sith temple. This artifact is not merely a relic, it is a weapon forged in the fires of the dark side. It is said to contain the essence of a long-dead Sith Lord, a spirit of such malevolence that even the strongest tremble at its name." Vader's interest was piqued, though his expression remained inscrutable behind his mask. "What is thy bidding, my master?" Sidious' lips twisted into a cruel smile. "You will go to Mygeeto and retrieve this artifact. But be warned, my apprentice, the temple is guarded by ancient traps and dark creatures that will test your strength and resolve. And there are others who seek this power. You must not fail." Vader rose, the mission a welcome distraction from the lingering ghosts of his past. "It will be done, my master." Sidious's eyes gleamed with a sinister delight. "Good. The power within this artifact will grant us an even greater dominion over the galaxy. But beware, Lord Vader, the spirit within it is treacherous. It will try to seduce you, to bend you to its will. You must dominate it, bend it to yours." Vader's voice was a cold, unyielding promise. "I will not be swayed. The dark side is my ally, and I am its master." "Indeed," Sidious purred, his satisfaction evident. "Go now, my apprentice. Bring me the artifact and let the galaxy tremble before our power." Vader turned, his cape billowing behind him like a shadow given form. As he strode out of the command center, the anticipation of the coming battle filled him with a grim satisfaction. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but he was Darth Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith. The Force was his to command, and he would not be denied. The journey to Mygeeto awaited, a crucible that would test his mastery of the dark side. But as he walked away, a faint whisper from the depths of his memory echoed through his mind. Anakin Skywalker was dead, but the shadows of his past still lingered, a reminder of the man he once was and the monster he had become. The cold, desolate landscape of Mygeeto stretched out beneath Vader's shuttle as it descended through the frigid atmosphere. Snow-covered ruins lay scattered across the surface, remnants of a once great civilization now buried in ice and time. The shuttle touched down with a hiss of hydraulics, and the ramp lowered, allowing Vader to step onto the frozen ground. A chill wind whipped at his cloak, but he remained unaffected, his focus solely on the dark task ahead. The entrance to the Sith temple loomed before him, an imposing structure half buried in ice, its dark stone etched with ancient runes that glowed faintly with an eerie red light. Vader moved forward, his presence a stark contrast to the desolate wasteland. The Force resonated with power here, a palpable darkness that thrummed in the air. The temple door, a massive slab of stone, groaned open at his approach, revealing a yawning maw of darkness. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and the lingering echo of ancient malice. Shadows clung to the walls, whispering secrets of forgotten horrors. Vader ignited his lightsaber, its crimson blade casting an ominous glow as he stepped into the darkness. The first trap sprang almost immediately. A series of pressure plates on the floor triggered a hail of poisoned darts from the walls. Vader's blade moved with blinding speed, deflecting each projectile with precise, calculated movements. The trap fell silent, defeated by his prowess. He continued deeper into the temple, his senses alert for the next challenge. The corridor narrowed, and he sensed another danger ahead. The walls suddenly began to close in, jagged spikes protruding from the sides. Vader summoned the Force, pushing against the walls with a tremendous surge of power. The stone groaned and resisted, but his will was unyielding. With a final, forceful push, he stopped the wall's advance and moved swiftly through the narrowing gap. The passage opened into a vast chamber, but as soon as he stepped inside, the floor gave way beneath him, revealing a pit filled with writhing, venomous serpents. Vader's reflexes were honed by years of combat. He leaped, using the Force to propel himself across the chasm, landing gracefully on the other side. The serpents hissed in frustration as he moved on, undeterred. Finally, he reached the heart of the temple. At its center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a dark, foreboding object, the artifact. But between Vader and his prize stood a guardian, a creature of nightmarish proportions. Its form was a twisted amalgamation of bone and shadow, eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It let out a guttural roar, the sound reverberating through the chamber. Vader advanced, his lightsaber held high. The creature lunged, its claws slashing through the air with deadly precision. Vader met its assault head-on, his movements a blur of red and black. The clash of lightsaber against claw echoed through the chamber, each strike fueled by the dark side. The creature's strength was immense, but Vader's mastery of the Force was greater. With a final, decisive stroke, he severed the beast's head from its body, and it collapsed into a heap of dust and bone. As the creature fell, the chamber shuddered, and Vader felt it. A disturbance in the Force, subtle, yet unmistakable. He paused, his senses extending beyond the immediate threat. There was someone else here, a presence that tugged at the edges of his awareness. A Force wielder, powerful and elusive,